Incorporated in 1989, Neogen Chemicals is a leading manufacturer of bromine and lithium-based specialty chemicals. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Harin Kanani, the company's managing director. And in this interview, we will discuss Neogen Ionics, a 100% owned subsidiary of NCL, and its initiatives in battery chemicals business. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. Kanani.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So, NCL has over 3 decades of expertise in lithium chemistry. So, please tell us more about your work with lithium-based chemicals.
Sure. So, basically, Neogen was started by my father. Both he and I are chemical engineers from IIT Bombay. He is 1968 batch and 99 batch.
Nice.
So, after graduating from IIT, my father he worked 1 year. He had a scholarship to go to US, but India needed chemical engineers. So he decided to stay back and he set up India's first bromine manufacturing plant. So bromine is made from seawater. So this plant was set up in 1970s. Unfortunately, there was a flood in which the entire plant got destroyed. He lost a lot of money. He worked as a consultant to repay all the losses, in which he built bromine plants for others. So 1985, when he came back to zero, that is the time when, he said, now there's bromine available, but we need somebody to make bromine derivatives. And one of the first bromine derivative he made was lithium bromide. So that's how our lithium journey started in 1985. That time it was a proprietary company, just in a 600 small square feet in 20 liters, he was making lithium bromide. When that business increased, he set up our Mahape unit in New Bombay. And for that, he needed a larger investment. So he set up a private limited company, which was Neogen Chemicals Private Limited. Neogen started operations in 91, but with lithium, we go back to almost 1985. And it's very interesting that this lithium bromide was also used for environmental crisis, which basically triggered this business. Because at that time, there was an ozone hole which was there. And this was also generated by chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, which were being used. So the Japanese came up with like a liquid-based cooling system. So no gas, so no damage to ozone. And the liquid which they chose was lithium bromide. Again, it has to do with a very specific property of lithium, which has that lithium bromide concentrated the solution. When it absorbs water, it cools down. So the entire refrigeration cycle is built around it. So that's how we started with lithium bromide in 91. And then from 91 till now, up to, let's say, 2017, we not only made this lithium bromide, we are the only ones in India for the OEMs, but then we also started exporting this to Europe, Japan, China, US. Then based on lithium bromide, there were many other applications of lithium chloride, nitrate, sulfate. So we started making many lithium salts. So up to 2017-18, and even now, almost 20% of Neogen's revenue comes from this lithium chemistry. So that has been like an uninterrupted growing business that we've established with a small beginning in 1985 in the lithium chemistry.
Right. And all these lithium-based chemicals, what is the end usage of these chemicals? What kind of businesses are you supplying this to?
So one is the application, which is the biggest application for cooling. So even today, this is an environment-friendly cooling solution because, even HCFCs, which have replaced CFCs, they also have a greenhouse. So they don't have a ozone damage, but they have a greenhouse. So again, the equivalent CO2 equivalent is very high. Even now, these are getting phased out. So there are green. So if you wanted to use a greener solution, people still use this vapor absorption cooling application where, as I said, not only India, but also Korea, Japan, China markets we supply. So that is one business. Then these lithium products are also used as catalysts for some pharmaceutical API manufacturing. So Neogen also has an organic chemical business, which is into pharma agro. So some of the lithium molecules also go for this pharma application. Then it is used as a catalyst for some specialty polymers. Then there are some dehumidification systems. So I don't know, you might have heard of oxygen generate. This dehumidification systems also use lithium compounds. Then, during COVID, we all used oxygen generators. So these oxygen generators, also some of the compact ones, the molecular seals to make them, you require lithium. So there are many such. At one point of time, we were supplying to all plants of Kodak a lithium compound, which is required for developing photographic film. Then digital cameras came, so it became like zero. So many applications come and go. Almost 7, 8 different industries we supply this lithium salts for last almost now 40 years, if I say 1985.
Okay, understood. And then you incorporated Neogen Ionics in 2023, is that correct?
Yes, so Neogen Ionics as a separate business was incorporated in 23 once we understood the total potential of this business. However, we started thinking of battery chemicals way back in 2017-18. So this was when, India announced the FAME 1 policy, China came up with the EV policy, and Tesla, set up the Giga factory or the went to US from, so they started in Europe, then they moved to US. So when that move happened, the lithium prices. So we all last 2 years had talked a lot about, lithium pricing. So lithium pricing from 1985 till almost till 2016-17, for that 30-35 years, not much movement. Like it was almost very steady, except, the original mining company was FMC, and then SQM came on the scene. So when they came, there was some price movement for market share change. Basically, when the lithium market mining shifted from America to Chile, Argentina. So that time there was some volatility, but other than that, always it was a very steady market. And in 2017-18, the price increased 2.5 times in 6 months. So we were like, what we've not seen in 30 years, we are seeing in 6 months. What happened? So our mining colleagues and friends from whom we are buying lithium for last 30 years, they came and they explained to us how fast EV is coming, how fast batteries are coming. And till it was only electronic batteries, the volume of lithium. So hardly was less than 5% lithium was used. But here in a matter of couple of years, it went from 5% to consuming 25-30% of total lithium mining capacity. So that's what caused that 2.5 times shift. And this was a time where, Neogen's 80% business is making organic chemicals based on bromine chemistry expertise for pharma and agro. So that business, we had made from making simple bromine derivatives to more complex one, then, making almost N-1 intermediate, then making it for innovators. So we had gone from making like $7, $8 simple bromine derivative to like a $200, $300 very complex pharma intermediate. So we were always wondering what is the similar thing we can do with lithium chemistry, but there was nothing exciting happening on lithium chemistry till this time. So when we got this opportunity, when we heard about the battery chemicals, we found yes, this is like where just as we put our 40 years of bromine experience to do more complex problems, this is our calling. We can now use our expertise to make lithium battery materials. So unfortunately for us, what happened is that when we went to all the Indian cell producers in 18 and 19, they were just thinking of at the most battery pack assembly. Okay, nobody was thinking of cell manufacturing. Nobody was able to even tell us exactly which lithium compound I should make, for lithium-ion battery. So then, and if you go to patents, there are just so many patents, you don't know what is actually inside the battery which is being used. So fortunately, we had our business for this non-battery lithium as well as for our pharma agro compounds in Japan. And in Japan, everything happens through trading companies. So there were trading companies where, one guy is expert of pharma agro. So similarly, in 3, 4 trading companies we were working with, one of the trading companies had expertise in EV battery material space. So then they kind of guided us where the lithium is, where it's used in the cathode, where it is used in electrolyte, which chemicals to make. And what we found that for electrolyte, some of the starting material is lithium chloride and lithium fluoride, which is what we were already making for non-battery applications. So it says, oh, okay, this is easy. And in pharma, we are very used to changing higher spec for one application versus another. So we said, okay, let's just make a high purity lithium chloride, fluoride, and that way we can enter the markets in Japan. And even at that time, Japan was dependent on China. And one of the things which Neogen has done very well, that whenever there is shortage, China is a big consumer and there the prices go crazy. And sometimes you can't get enough supply. Whereas with our relationship, we can even get supply in a crazy period of time. So therefore, the Japanese also were interested. So we started working on that. We developed technologies for making, purifying the lithium carbonate into a higher purity one, and then make lithium chloride, fluoride. And I think we also started our third site in Dahej, where we basically said, okay, we'll start by making normal quality lithium bromide chloride, but as soon as we get approval, we'll start making the battery grade part. So we were ready with the technology, we were ready with the building plant, and 2019 we attended also some battery shows in Japan, understood the customer base. 2020, first time we took part in an international exhibition to showcase our capabilities. But that was March 2020. So we went there, we had our booth, we had our posters. But because COVID happened, show was cancelled. We came back and India went into lockdown. So we use that lockdown period, to understand. So by now we'd understood that we require derivatives like LiPF6, LiFSI, which are different electrolyte, salt, and additive. So we use the lockdown period to basically develop chemistries and technologies of that. And ultimately, we also desired that we felt that for India, for Neogen, the best option was basically to work on the final electrolyte. I mean, India was somewhere where we can have a local supply chain and add a lot of value. So therefore, we chose electrolyte as our first stream, and we developed also. We started understanding, okay, what does the electrolyte formulation look like? Starting to source raw materials for that, and I think so. During COVID in 2020, we were ready with this, and 21, 22, CESRI basically started. So we started getting in touch by this time with ARCI, CESRI, as well as with ISRO. So, trying to understand what kind of chemicals they would need, what kind of formulations of electrolyte they need. And we also participated in CESRI's first tender, where we were very encouraged that we were the only electrolyte maker from India who basically participate, and still we were the lowest cost. So anyway, so we did all of these business, and I think like post COVID, the world wanted batteries much more than before. So there was a lot of interest, and we were also constantly communicating with our Japanese customers. So all that business was getting traction, and when we saw the scale at which we would require to invest, it's like whatever we have invested in Neogen for, let's say, last 30 years, more than 2 times of that we are investing into battery materials in 2 years, right? So when the scale was that, we felt that it required a dedicated subsidiary, and that's why Neogen Ionics was.
Okay, wonderful. So, for electrolyte manufacturing, can you help us understand what does the value chain of electrolyte production look like? And which all parts of this value chain is Neogen Ionics a part of?
Sure. So, if we think of starting from the mine, so let's first say electrolyte. So electrolyte has broadly three components. What is called electrolyte salt, which is usually, if it's a lithium-ion battery, it's a lithium electrolyte salt. If it's a sodium-ion battery, it will be a sodium salt, right? So there are 2 or 3 very common electrolyte salts which are used. Then you have solvents. So there are 5 or 6 organic solvents in which electrolyte will get dissolved. And there will be around and then there will be few additives. Even the additives can be broken down in 2 parts: lithium-based additives or organic additives. Okay. So now and again, so there are about 15 or 20 additives which are there, 5 or 6 lithium-based additives, and around 10 or 12 organic additives. So now, if you look at this, any particular electrolyte will, the battery maker or the electrolyte maker will choose 1 or 2 electrolyte salt, most common being LiPF6, lithium hexafluorophosphate, or LiFSI. Then they would use, out of the 5 organic solvent, they will choose 2 or 3 organic solvent depending on their cell design. And out of the 15-20 additives, they will choose, let's say, minimum 1 or 2 additives, and on the higher side, around 5 additives, depending on how complex is your cell application. So this is what electrolyte is there. Now, if you look at value, like I would say 50-60% value is the salt, and 30-35% value is the solvents, and remaining 15-20% cost contribution will come from your additives. Okay. So now, so salt, which is the major one, right? The value chain is you start from lithium, which comes out of mine. Okay, so that is something which Neogen was already doing for last 30 years. So you have mines in Chile, Argentina, from whom we have bought for last 30 years. And now, of course, there are more mines and refining coming in Australia. So these 2-3 places you can buy the lithium. Now, what that comes out usually is a technical grade around 99.3, 99.4% pure. Maybe if it's a battery grade, slightly higher. But for electrolyte, you require much higher purity than what is called as a battery grade lithium carbonate, because as compared to what is required in cathode, electrolyte requires even higher purity. So then first stage is to purify this to almost a 99.8, 99.9% pure with, metal impurities below like 10 ppm or so. Then this gets converted to lithium fluoride or lithium chloride as a salt, then to one of these, like, LiPF6, LiFSI, or similarly, you can also do chemistry and make the other additives. So like LiPO2F2, LiPoP, and few other additives, lithium-based additives which are there. So now in Neogen, we are doing the entire thing. So we take just the lithium carbonate which comes out of the mine, then we will purify it, then we make the purified lithium salts, then we will make the complex lithium derivative, and then ultimately we will do the formulation to make the electrolyte, which is going to cell. So at least on the lithium side of it, from mine to cell manufacturing, everything in between is done by Neogen. Okay.
Okay, so solvent and additive manufacturing is also at your end.
So solvents is basically, so solvent, the starting point is crude oil. Okay. And generally refineries will produce ethylene oxide or propylene oxide. And then these are used. So petrochemical plants, are generally more suitable for that. And generally the solvents also have a non-battery application. So the worldwide plants are of a capacity 100,000 metric ton or 100 KTA or 200 KTA or sometimes even bigger, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to put a solvent plant. I know the chemistry, but it will not be economically viable. So what we have done is that solvents we are purchasing from outside. So there are existing makers of this in Europe, in US, in Japan, in China, like in Middle East, Southeast Asia. So you can buy from any of these guys. And India also, there are people who are planning to make it. Right now, to begin with, we are buying battery grade, but in the bigger plant, we will have an opportunity that even if the company can make just a technical grade solvent, we can purify and make the battery grade. So we would let a refinery make a normal technical grade solvent and then do the purification ourselves. So with that, we can control the value addition. That's on the solvent side. And lithium additives, we already will make ourselves, again from scratch. Only organic additives, there are few companies in India which have already started. So these guys, if they already started, we will buy from them. But if there is a particular additive which is needed, like I told you, 80% of Neogen's business is to make organic compounds for pharma, agro, and other industries. So even they have the capability to make the organic additive if needed. So once the scale and once the additive is identified, that which one is most used in India, like, then that particular additive, if required, Neogen Chemicals can make for Neogen Ionics.
Understood. So like you said, electrolyte salt is the biggest value addition, 50 to 60% of
Yes.
like manufacturing. And so the technology for electrolyte salt production, is it your own proprietary technology?
Yes, so that technology has been developed by Neogen. We like, so again, so that's as I told you, we started step by step way back in 2018. By 2019, we had figured out how to make the high purity at least intermediates. And then 2021, we were able to also develop the LiPF6, LiFSI, and there are a few more additives. So we have developed 4 or 5 molecules already in our lab. We also developed NaPF6, but as we understand customer need, so LiPF6 is the biggest, then followed by LiFSI. So these are the molecules which are also now getting scaled up, and we can also make in a commercial plant, not just the lab. The remaining molecules we are making in the lab so far will basically then bring them to the commercial as we start getting capacity and we start seeing more demand.
Understood. And the technology for electrolyte production, I read that you have a technology license from MUIS Japan. Can you tell me more about this partnership?
Yeah, so I think, we were in touch with Mitsubishi since those 2020 kind of second half days, initially over Zoom, and then over personal meetings. So we had 2 conversations. Hey, we are going to make LiPF6. Do you want our LiPF6? And second is, hey, I want to make battery electrolytes for my battery. I know I can make on my own, but you have made it for last 30 years. If you can teach me, then we can be more sure on the safety of it. Plus, you might have some more efficient process because I'm just starting and you've done for 30 years. Would you license this to me? So I think that discussion went on for 2 years. Then, after lots of back and forth discussion, they finally said yes, and they gave us a technology license. So just to give a perspective, MUIS, it's basically MU Ionics solution, basically stands for Mitsubishi Ube Ionics solution. So Mitsubishi and Ube were basically one of the oldest electrolyte makers in Japan. So they've been making electrolytes for more than 30 years in Japan. Also, not only Japan, when this battery technology started moving to the world, so when it went to Europe, they went to Europe and set up a plant in Europe. When it went to US, they set up a plant in US. When it went to China, they set up a plant in China. So they have 5 plants. They have, because electrolyte is something which is always done locally. It's very difficult to transport. Transportation is a very big challenge. Sometimes shelf life is also an issue. So therefore, it's always done closer to the battery manufacturing. So, they have set up plant everywhere. In India, first time in their 30 years history, they have given a license to anyone. So they are parting with the technology. And that license we got. And so even here, while we were talking, there was also Cecily, which was saying, I'm going to start my plant and I will need electrolytes for that. Also in India, originally it was planned, and even now, more or less, we are just on track. Where 2024, as per PLI scheme, the giga production was going to start. So we knew that, if we just wait for after a certain point in time, while we were discussing with Mitsubishi, we knew if we wait longer, then we will not be able to take care of India's initial demand of electrolyte. So whatever with our own technology also, we started designing the plant. And even now we have a 2000 metric ton plant, which has already come active, which basically will make electrolyte. So that plant today, so that plant is in our Dahej site, where I said in the same site, we start from lithium carbonate from the mine. We purify lithium carbonate, LiF, LiPF6, make the electrolyte and do the final formulation. So that entire supply chain, that chain has been established there. And at present, 2000 metric ton, if you are making like a NMC battery, you can support 4 to 5 gigawatt hour of production. If you are making LFP, you can support around 2 gigawatt hour of production. So let's say some NMC, some LFP, somewhere between 2 to 5 gigawatt hour can be supported by this site. So that is already ready. So even as Ola starts its gigafactory, maybe Exide, Amara and Reliance to follow, their first giga production can already be taken care locally by the electrolyte plant that we already established.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah, and in parallel, we started working with Mitsubishi last year in April. So we gave them all so we were already in touch with all the customers who are planning to make batteries. In fact, even during PLI, when people were making application, they wanted to understand the value addition part. So they work very closely with Neogen, not only on this, but some cathode chemistry also. So, in during CESRI discussion, since nobody was working on LFP in 2020, we also developed our own LFP. So we also were parts, some of the people who were interested in LFP also wanted to know how much value addition will be in India and how much lithium will contribute, etc. So I think so we were in touch with all of them, and we basically had recipes of all these people, tentative recipes what they were looking at. So we shared this with Mitsubishi, and based on that, Mitsubishi has designed a plant which can basically make 18, 20 different kinds of recipe in which all this 15, 20 additives and permutation combinations can be managed. They have one plant in Japan which is most diverse because it basically supplies to all the electronic component makers, which have different electrolyte needs. And in US they have a very large volume plant. So they have combined the knowledge and diversity of the Japanese plant and the scale operation of the US plant while designing Neogen's plant. So we're very grateful for the amount of detailing and the help they gave us in designing. So the design is already ready. And what we've decided is they've already given us the design so we can start construction of the plant. This plant will be 30,000 metric ton or 30 KTA plant. And like I told you, depending on NMC LFP mix, although now it looks like more and more of LFP. We can basically support almost around 30 gigawatt hour of battery production once this plant comes online. So we expect it to come online by end of 2025 and in the second half of 25. So somewhere between June to September, so July to September. So in Q3, we are targeting the trial run. Maximum, let's say by December, we should be fully ready to start supplying from there. So this is the technology, and I think so we can support 30 giga from there. And in the beginning, initial can be with our own technology, the plant we have in Dahej, so we can support from.
Understood. So a couple of questions. First of all, is this technology license from MUIS, is this an exclusive license for India?
No, so it's not an exclusive license, but it's just the way Japan works because, if they give me exclusive license and I don't do the capex, then they get stuck. But at least understanding is that Neogen, they would first want to see as long as Neogen is investing, hopefully they will not need to give a license to somebody else.
Okay. And overall in cell manufacturing, what is the value attributed to electrolyte?
I've heard numbers ranging from 6% to 10%.
Okay.
Right.
With respect to the 30 KTA plant that is coming up in Dahej, what kind of investments are you planning for this?
So the investments which we have announced is not only for electrolyte. So as I told you, Neogen is doing everything, right? So from that, the electrolyte is for India. But one stage before, the salts are basically for the international market. Right? So today, outside of China, there are hardly 3 or 4 companies, literally only 4 companies outside of China, which can make LiPF6 today outside China. There's one Japanese, there's one Korean, and then Neogen and one more Indian company. We are the only 4 companies who have an ability to make LiPF6. So there, and as you know, as per IRA Act, because it requires lithium, it requires fluorine, which are all critical minerals, you cannot have this processed in China. So imagine only 4 plants outside of China. Again, combined capacity of that would be also only 5% or 6% of the world's total requirement. Okay. So there's a very strong need for companies which can make salts for the world. Basically, especially those who want to be part of US supply chain where they want a China-free supply. Even if you take away IRA, if let's say the world reaches like 3000 gigawatt hour, and let's say non-China demand reaches 1000 or 1500 gigawatt hour, they would want an option to China, right? And and India is right now the cheapest, whatever we've seen so far, outside of China. We feel even from a value point of view, if we look at a 4 year, China prices go very low and then they go very high. So if you do a 4 year value addition, we are even cheaper than China, because when China sometimes goes low, but when it goes high, it goes like crazy high. So as compared to even China, our cost over, let's say, 4 year, 5 year period can be better. So I think there's a very strong interest for that. So the investment which we are making is not only for the electrolyte 30 KTA, but also for electrolyte salt, where we are totally installing around 5,500 metric ton, which can support around 40, 50, sorry. Yeah, so it can support almost around 50, 60 gigawatt hour, right? And in the beginning, India will not need the entire 30 giga in the beginning. So in the beginning, we can sell 40, 50 giga worth of salt outside and use 10 giga for the India. And then as India demand keeps increasing, we can just keep adding more capability. So together, all the investment which we've done so far and what we are doing is about 1500 crores, which includes basically 30 30 giga kind of 30 KTA or 30 giga at an electrolyte level, and around 50, 55 gigawatt hour equivalent for the salt. And in addition, also, so we have created a new 65-acre complex where we will be initially we just started with this small facility in our existing plant, but where we are setting up this Mitsubishi, we'll have an option to go up to 100 KTA solvent in the future. Or salt also will start with 3 KTA, but we have a option to again go up to 20,000 KTA. And we still have 20 acres of land for making LFP or LMFP, where we have a technology partner, we have the environment clearance. We are just waiting for some customer to say, hey, I want LFP from India, right? So once we have that, then we can also put that land to it. So that 1500 crore is for everything.
For everything, for all.
Yeah. I mean, not the higher capacities, but basically infrastructure for the higher capacity, and specifically 30 KTA of electrolyte and 5,500 metric ton of salt.
Okay. And do you feel confident about the electrolyte salts produced at your end will be cost competitive if we compare with China and other established facilities?
Yeah, so outside China, hands down, we are we are cheaper. Now, when it comes to China, one of the challenges in China is cost and price has no connection. Because sometimes, they can sell below cost also, and sometimes they can sell 3 times the cost also, right? So I think where we come in is that, as I told you, we did some analysis that, okay, let's look at the China price for 4 years, right? And we don't like to sell very low. We don't like to sell very high. We would want okay, whatever is the lithium variation will be a pass through to a customer, but our margins basically should be protected at a reasonable level. So even if we do the reasonable margin protection and the contracts that we've signed with our international customers, if you take that, okay, if they bought from Neogen a certain volume at that basically kind of a contracted kind of a price versus they bought spot from China, they would have saved a lot of money buying a fixed price, a formula based price from Neogen versus buying a spot price from China.